we've been doing emails a lot
Yes.
on our Everything's Okay podcast, but we even got some emails for this specific podcast. So we're going to read them to you and talk about them a little bit. The first one is about Zasloff and Warner Brothers. They're asking, what's going on? Hey, Dustin and Logan, I love your podcast and appreciate how you break down the complex industry news in such a very digestible way. Your recent discussion about David Zaslav's leadership at Warner Brothers really struck a chord with me. I agree with your concerns and about the company's direction, especially with all the reconstructing. It seems like Warner Brothers is losing its identity a little bit. What do you think about the long-term impact that will be the types of films that they greenlight? Will it all just be franchises and IP focus or content forward? Keep up the great work. Sarah from Chicago. Sarah, thank you so much for sending that in. Obviously, in my opinion, they're only focused on big budget films so they can try to do quick money. They obviously have really good stuff in the television space, HBO and on HBO Max and things like that. But as far as the film slate, yeah, I just think they're looking for cash grabs, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so funny that email couldn't have been more timely with what we were just talking about with the disaster that Zaslav is. Yeah, when you say, how do we feel? What are our concerns about the company's future? My concern is that there won't be a company, that he's going to tear apart Warner Brothers and just rip it apart. And I'm not sure what he wants to greenlight. Sometimes he'll greenlight stuff and then can it. And so I don't think that this man has any business running a film studio. Or he wants discovery. I don't know why I think he literally made this thing happen so that he could get access to Max, a bigger streaming platform than Discovery, and merge that so he could do what he wanted to do. And he doesn't really give a shit about the history of the studio or movie making or anything like that. That just, in my opinion, he just doesn't. And I mean, if you hear people in Hollywood talk, they seem to agree. There's not a lot of people that I know in Hollywood, other executives of other studios or creators or, content actors, they don't like him. So my concern for the future, it's not going to be around, that he's going to tear this thing up and ruin the legacy of Warner Brothers. So I hope not. But great question. And because, and I'm sure we'll have much more to say about it on future shows, so stick with that. And then another one, also kind of timely, fell right into it of what we've been talking about, which I love. This one says, hey, Dustin and Logan, I have to say I completely agree with your continued critique on Hollywood's obsession with reboots and remakes. It's like there's no originality anymore. Yours rants about how studios are just banking on nostalgia instead of creating fresh stories really hits home with me. Why do you think that Hollywood is so stuck on this pattern? That is from Jessica from Ontario. Hey, shout out to Canada. For what Logan just said, money grabs. Intellectual property that they own are cheaper to make and therefore the better chance on a return on investment. I think these reboots and remakes and rebrandings or whatever you want to call them over and over and over again is because they're terrified to lose money. They're all so in debt right now, with these streamers to keep these things afloat. Between COVID and then the strikes, the theaters and the movies took a hit. And so they're all struggling. And so they're trying to figure out a way, how can we make money and not take risk? And that's by producing stuff that they already own. And so sadly, you saw it a little before the strikes and COVID, right? They were still but now even way more so. And while I get that from a business standpoint, from a creator standpoint, I don't like it. Because there's a lot of original content out there by a lot of really talented people that's not seeing the light of day because of this. And that disturbs me a little bit. And I hope that that's a trend that we can buck. You are seeing every now and then, like Civil War, like we talked about earlier, or like a Bike Riders, or, every now and then we'll get sprinkled with an original content, right, that does pretty well. But for the most part, we're not seeing it. And I hope we can change that. I really do.
Yeah, it seems like original content is only for Oscar nominated films.
Yeah.
I mean, everything else as far as blockbusters and movie going, and I just feel like it's been so diluted to the point to where it's sad. Coming from the business standpoint to piggyback off of what you just said, I mean, they're trying to reshoot stuff that is already been out there, but also has already been successful. So I mean it is a big money grab, just trying to recoup that stuff. But I mean, you're seeing positions like a producer like completely diminish because if you think about it, all of these actors who already have their own film and television production company, they're coming with a full package ready to go and they already have their people working on it, you know? I mean, to the point where like studio producers aren't really out there anymore. So it's one of those things where you either have to be a legacy or like claw and nail to try to get your foot in the door, which is super crazy because I mean the industry compared to it is 2024 compared to 2000. It is completely different. 2024 compared to 1970, completely different.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say it's better. I mean, the quality, I mean, is roughly the same. The technology is better, but I wouldn't say the quality is better. You still have hidden gems. You still have great content that comes out every single year. But it's one of those things where, with so many different obstacles that the studios have had to face over the last couple of years, they're just trying to make sure they stay afloat because if not, you're going to be hemorrhaging money and your stock is going to be sitting at $8.
Well,
So it's one of those things you're just trying to stay above ground.
Well, and you just nailed it. You just because there's a lot of these actors and directors and stuff who now have their own production companies, and the studios need to be really careful because big hits are coming out of these independent production companies. A24 is slaying it. Margot Robbie with what is hers, Lucky Chap, huge hits coming out of it. Brad Pitt's Plan B, he might not be in all of them, but he's backing them. He's producing them.
He just produced Beetlejuice.
He just produced Beetlejuice, right? So, and Taylor Swift proved that you don't need the studio. You can go directly to a theater chain with a distribution deal. So if the studios aren't careful and they keep passing on this original content, these independent production companies like Lucky Chap and Plan B and A24 are going to make these movies with their packaged stars and go straight to the theaters for distribution and skip the studios altogether. And then you're really in trouble, right? You're already struggling. But if these big name people and their production companies start putting together packages with their big name friends and skipping the studio, that could be huge trouble with an industry that where the stock prices are hovering in the low 20s and single digits already. So my advice to the studios would be very careful. Take more looks at the original content. Say yes more often because you could be in trouble if you don't. I'm just putting that out. A24, if you look at the Oscar race over the last 5-6 years, A24 has consistently got nominees. They're consistently battling for the statue. Not studios, A24. So just I'm just saying, they got to be careful. They got to be careful because, you know, that's where the market is headed if people don't pay attention. So
Yeah.
I'm worried about the studio system. I really am. We were just talking about Zaslav, but the legacy of these studios, who now the remaining studios left, are all part of the original Big Five. They're 100 years of history, and they're this close to being gone. They're in danger of being gone because of moves like this. So just, whew. I don't know, man. Yeah. I don't know. You don't want to see the end of an era from these studios, and unless you're fortunate enough to be like a Disney who has theme parks and you know, ships and different things to keep you afloat outside of the film and television. If you're strictly film and television, you're fucked. So I mean, you I don't know. It's woo. I don't know. Yeah, but thank you for the email.
It's crazy, man. It is absolutely crazy.